So Ben Shapiro, he is sort of like the self-appointed Pope of the Jews. Right?
We could do a lot better than that.
He's young Jew Pope.
Yes.
He is he's the young Jew Pope.
Don't speak to me in a familiar way.
He thinks that he has the ability, in his really bizarre form of Judaism, that he can determine who is a good Jew and a bad Jew. He said this many, many times before.
He's used the phrase "gino"
and yeah,
Jew in name only.
Jew in name only. But he's also said that, you know, you're a bad Jew if you support Democrats, and which, you know, you'd have to dig pretty deep into to the teachings at Yavna to find that, but it's there.
So the majority of American Jews are bad.
Right, exactly, as Rabbi Akiva said. But even Rabbi Akiva was not the Pope of the Jews like Ben Shapiro is. But Ben now is going to explain to us the prominence of the fetus and how the fetus is far more relevant than a fully born woman who, of course, just comes from the rib of Adam anyways. So
Michelle Wolf championing the abortion. I mean, this is a shift in the language, in the tone, in the tenor of the left. And then you wonder why evangelical Christians support President Trump. You don't have to like President Trump's treatment of women. You don't have to like the fact that he says nasty things about people. You don't have to like a lot of things about the dude. But if the alternative is a Democratic Party that thinks that that is funny, a Democratic Party and an entire political wing of the United States that cheers and laughs when a human being says about the killing of an unborn human being that killing made her feel powerful like God, like that's... I will vote for pretty much anything before I vote for anybody who laughs at that joke. I mean, that, like, really. I'll vote for pretty much, and evangelical Christians feel the same. See, what the left wants to do is say you have no moral standards if you vote for President Trump because President Trump is a bad man who's done bad things. Okay, well, then what does it make you to vote for people who want abortion on demand all the way up to point of birth and who refuse to even acknowledge the humanity of a baby 5 seconds before it comes through a mother's vaginal canal? And you're going to have to explain that one to me. Which is more immoral? Voting for a president who has allegedly sexually harassed women, or voting for somebody who has pledged to make abortion on demand not only legal across the country, but celebrated in our culture? Which seems worse in terms of politics? I'm not talking about who you'd rather have babysit your kid. I'm not talking about who you'd rather go to dinner with. I'm talking about the fundamental principles at stake when you talk about partisan politics. In an environment like this, an environment this polarized, this is why, unless the Democrats were willing to push forward an impeachment that was actually supportable by facts, unless they were willing to push forward an impeachment that was so overwhelming in its criminal standards of proof, this was going nowhere from the outset. Because if you think that anyone is going to go along with the Michelle Wolf wing simply because President Trump doesn't know how to talk on phone calls and says dumb crap a lot, you are thinking about this thing all wrong.
All right.
What is this kid talking?
Let me explain. Let me translate.
Out of your mouth, Ben Shapiro.
Let me translate. Ben Shapiro saw a skit by Michelle Wolf, who is a comedian, and wherein she was saying that she was empowered by having the ability to have an abortion, and therefore there's no way Republicans are going to vote in the Senate for impeachment because of the Michelle Wolf wing of the Democratic Party, or as we refer to it here, as the primary Democratic caucus.
That's right. I mean, is this a new genre of triggering the cons?
Exactly. And
what the hell?
Well, first off, there's no one who's saying like abortion on demand 5 seconds before birth. That is not the case. It is not available to anyone. In the only instance where you would have any type of abortion even remotely close to the end of a term of pregnancy would have to do with a life-threatening situation for the mother. I
changed my mind 5 seconds before birth.
Right, exactly. I've carried it 8 months, and now it's like, I'm just going to do this because Michelle Wolf told me to do it.
Did you hear about the Elizabeth Warren psych bill?
Right.
And then you say, psych to the kid, 5 seconds away. You go, gosh darn it, I'm aborting you, even though you're about to come out of the vaginal canal. Because I thought that would trigger Ben Shapiro.
But the idea that a fetus, and he wants to call it an unborn human being, well, I mean, it's a fetus. There's actually like it's about facts, not your emotions, not your feelings about it. It's simply about a fact, Ben. And but the idea that he would just blow off the notion of like, okay, he's been alleged to have molested 43 women. What possible impact could that have on our politics? The idea, like, because it's also, let's be clear, if you look at the Republicans in the Senate and the House of Representatives, I don't know that there's anybody in this room who has been alive at a time where there has been less female representation in the Republican Party. Never mind white people, the exclusive representation of I mean, near exclusive. I think it's probably, I don't know, 3% of the electeds in the House might be African-American, black.
Among the Republicans?
Like, maybe less.
I think it's less.
Well, it could be less. I mean, Hurd, he's going to retiring. Tim Scott.
Mia Long lost her seat. Mia Love gave me no love.
No love.
Lost her seat. That's how I remember.
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott in the Senate.
Nevertheless, the idea that the president having total disregard for women so much so that he feels that he can grope them because he can get away with any of it. His total disregard then becomes the justification for anything that Donald Trump does. So in other words, there is no position a Republican president can take. There is nothing
he could shoot somebody
Republican
on Fifth Avenue.
He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. If you are in any way surprised because you have comedians making rude jokes about abortion, that's why Donald Trump should be allowed to do anything. So he basically, and he's also saying, like, in the political world, he has taken this comedian who's been elected by no one and put them into politics in his regard, because he wants the broader culture to be defined by who we elect as a president, as opposed to keeping it about rights. I mean, this guy talks about it's about facts and not feelings. His entire project is about feelings. His entire project.
Victimology and self-justification. And I also think that it is interesting to me that he did not say, like, he downgraded it. He didn't say allegations of being a rapist. Like, even there, that's a word choice, you know.
Of course.
Yeah, he chickened out.
Of course. Well, yeah, why not go full boat? I want to know exactly what Ben Shapiro, the Pope of the Jews, Popes of the good Jews, thinks is okay and inexcusable if you have people like this comedian Michelle Wolf around. Like, what are they allowed to do?
The little Jew kid said that I could nuke Mongolia because she made a very bad joke.
Very bad joke.
And it was very rude, and it was terrible, and we're nuking Mongolia.
And that's what's at stakes with our partisan politics.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, it really actually is so frustrating to me, because I do think, like, Doug Lane, who's, Disclosure, is my publisher, but, like, I agree with him. He's somebody on the left who takes, free speech, you want to call it. That's another word that's been destroyed by these people, extremely seriously. And I've migrated much closer to that position. But, like, this idiot constantly making disingenuous, whiny claims about this, and then literally is not only endorsing cancel culture over comedy, but extending it to a blank check to support a president doing literally anything because of a joke. I mean,
cancel culture for thee, not for me.
But it's beyond cancel culture. That's not even, I mean, that is literally, I couldn't even think of it's like, well, I heard, I don't know, Nick DiPaolo made a joke, so I give myself permission to do hit and runs in Westchester.
That's right. If Nick DiPaolo is making these kinds of jokes, And we should definitely be locking up Bill Barr and executing Rudy Giuliani.
Exactly, that's it.
As a political program.
You know, you may not like that the FARC have a hit on Rudy Giuliani, but Nick DiPaolo mocking a black activist that was killed, all bets are off. Okay, the FARC can do whatever they want.
Fast and Furious would be a big problem under Obama. if Nick DiPaolo or that Norton guy hadn't made such rude jokes.
Yeah. Exactly. Norton's still on Sirius. And anyways, my point is
Did
that
you see
all
that
firstborn white
24?
males need to be castrated.
That Series 24, that's why Benghazi's okay. Because they're putting out TV shows and doing that show like 24.
Right.
So Benghazi... Pff.
You know what? Keith or Sutherland, they think torturing terrorist suspects is a joke. And you know what? You might not like that the intelligence officers in Benghazi were killed, but guess what? All bets are off. 24 was super offensive. You may have thought 9/11 was bad, but Rambo was super in bad taste about Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
That's what he's saying.
I was just going to go out on a limb and say that Ben Shapiro doesn't need jokes to oppose abortion. But it is funny to watch him grasping for more and more cultural pegs, as it were.
Well,
exactly.
You're totally right. But this is all that, he's like the millennial moral scold. And I think in 2016, he did a whole and if this was also hilarious because he literally said Andrew Breitbart would never do this. I mean, Andrew Breitbart would be having, I don't want to say it because it's disgusting, but Andrew Breitbart would have been ecstatic about Donald Trump. So it was ridiculous. But he did leave Breitbart and say Bannon was bad and all this stuff. And I don't know if he was a never Trumper, but I think he might have been he might have even been like a I live in California, I'm going to cast a protest vote guy. And so it's more subtle than Beck because Beck has a down market and he just needed to drop all of that crap if he wanted his career to survive. But Shapiro also needs to be a Trumpist to have a mainstream appeal.
Of course.
But he's got to always do this I still object because of course I'm super moralistic.
Donald Trump is horrible. However, Michelle Wolf making these jokes is just a little bit more horrible enough to get me to the place where I need to be.
Well, it is a thought process that a lot of evangelical Christian voters go through. They are disgusted by Trump and the rape stuff and the swears and his rudeness and crudeness. But if you really believe abortion is murder and that's your first priority, then you're going to vote for him.
I would also, though, argue that none of them would have ever heard of Michelle Wolf were it not for Ben Shapiro.
No disrespect to Michelle Wolf. She's a very funny, talented person. But I have not heard. I think she was on Rogan a couple of months ago. And I knew that because it was a suggested YouTube video that I didn't click on. No offense to anybody.